Hello, welcome everyone to November. Ha. Oh, it's November 2nd. Oops, got the date wrong. Let me fix that real quick. Welcome everyone to November. This is the Jim Kleiber Show, and we are live and trying to update the little graphic at the bottom at the same time. Oh, goodness. Time is flying this year. We are moving faster than I think many of us realize. Someone says, howdy friend, did I vote? Yes, I definitely voted. I voted like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, actually. And I'm really glad that I voted. Really glad that I'm not so stressed out about it right now that I don't have to go vote tomorrow. How about you people out there? Have you voted yet? For all my American listeners. I definitely voted, and I was just reading about the voter turnout, actually. It said that a lot of people have voted. I was looking at something on Twitter, and it said that in many states, it's at the same level. Like, I think it said Hawaii was at 111% of the total vote in 2016 for the people who have already voted. So this idea that we have already surpassed voter turnout from 2016, and we haven't even had election day yet. So I'm excited about that. It's actually what I wanted to talk about today, was just we're getting involved. And whatever your perspective is on Trump, he seems to have energized many people to pay more attention to the political process. I have learned so much over the last 4 years as it comes to politics, and I would say I'm much more politically active or engaged than I have ever been in my life. Part of me wishes I weren't so engaged, that the government just ran and I didn't have to pay too much attention to it, or didn't think that I had to pay too much attention to it. But goodness, I've learned so much about the ins and outs of government and the process and the judicial and the legal system and Congress and the executive branch and different positions in the executive branch, and names of people in the executive branch, and the history of different positions and the history of, goodness, so much over the last 4 years that I did not anticipate learning. In a way, again, I kind of wish I didn't feel so compelled to learn it, that I could focus on other things in life more so. But at the same time, I'm also very grateful. And the fact that we have that much voter turnout right now says that there are a lot of people who are politically engaged, more so than they were in 2016. And maybe it's because so many of us are sitting at home watching a lot of TV and looking at the internet a lot, from our work from home or quarantine, or some of the struggles we're having during the pandemic. So somebody says, heck yeah, procrastinate, gotta go tomorrow. Good. Well, I'm excited. People are going to be going out on election day as well. Stay safe and have fun. I think one thing we don't talk about so much is that voting can be fun. It's not just an obligation or a duty. It can be nice to just go out there and fill in the box and have this tradition, this ritual that happens every 2 years, 4 years, even more frequently, depending on the area you're in. And just, I don't know, it feels nice. It feels nice to go out there and get the little sticker and, I voted and did my role. And I wish there were more opportunities to contribute to society so directly, or things that we celebrated at such level. I think, where was it? I think it's in Rwanda. I was there in 2010, I believe it was. And Rwanda instituted a policy where everyone had to go out and clean kind of the public areas, I think like outside their house and the streets and stuff like this. It's like once a month. Now, it felt a little forced to me, but I like this idea of having kind of a shared civic engagement activity for us to do. It seems like voting is the only one we got. And even then, we kind of frame it as like this obligation that's kind of boring and drab. But it could be fun. I don't know. How about you people listening? Do you feel excited that you get to vote? How about the people who aren't American citizens? How much do you wish you could vote in this election? Oh, I have friends in Europe and in Africa and in other parts of the world who are paying so close attention to this election. And I wonder how many of them wish they could have a say instead of just trying to push me in a certain direction. They're like, "Oh, my American friend, you have to vote this way." And most of them say to vote for Biden, but some of them say to vote for Trump. Um, and regardless, it's this. I think so many people wish they could vote in their country and have it matter, but even more so, vote in America and have it matter. You know, so yeah, I think we'll see what happens. As much as I have a lot of fear about what's going to happen in terms of the election results, in terms of the election process, in terms of the legal uh, ramifications and the lawsuits and everything that may happen afterwards. But I also have a lot of excitement. It's that like, ooh, it's finally here. 4 years of waiting. It's tomorrow. It's happening. It's starting. So the vote won't be finalized tomorrow, almost certainly. But that's okay. It's starting. It's finally like, okay, now it's in. We've submitted it. Now it's in the hands of the people who are going to count. Just almost there. Almost there. And yeah, this weird feeling of excitement and terror at the same time. And I think those go hand in hand sometimes. It's it's the heart's beating faster, and we get a little unsure what's going to happen. We're leaning towards the future. We don't know if it's good. We don't know if it's bad. We don't know if it's really good. We don't know if it's really bad. We are just bouncing back and forth. So many of us. Excited to not have political advertisements on TV anymore. Oh my gosh. How nice will that be? When every 5 seconds you stop hearing something about how this person is crooked and evil and doesn't care and they're lazy and they're trying to destroy your children. Like what happened to the advertisements of March? And hopefully we'll get the advertisements of December that give the Christmas kind of warm holiday spirit. Gosh, I look forward to those. Seeing like the polar bear with Coca-Cola. I don't know how good that is for the environment, but I don't know how long polar bears will last. But I do like the polar bear. Somebody comments, Biden for normal America. It's another thing I was talking about earlier with my dad. Just this idea that, if I'm a business investor, I want to have predictability. I want to, sometimes it really hurts if there's new taxes or new regulations. Yeah. But even then, I would like to get a heads up when they're coming. So there is something, I think, to be said for predictability in governance. And I think one thing, whether you like Trump's policies or not, most people I talk to don't seem to like his behavior. But a lot of people, some people will say they really like the policies he's done. He announces a lot of his policies in a very haphazard, unpredictable manner, often surprising the people who work on his own team by tweeting something out without informing the Pentagon or informing the Department of Labor, or Department of Justice. And I think it would be hard enough to work on that team. But if I'm an investor trying to look to invest in this country and do something longer term, maybe I'm trying to put in a plant or a factory here, I want to know whether regulations are coming or not in a couple of years, so to determine whether I should make that investment. I think we do this with relationships a lot too. We like to be in a relationship with somebody longer term that is predictable. We don't want someone to just up and leave or bring 10 people over to the house or, just do, it can be fun sometimes. We like the surprises. The surprises can bring joy and anger and stuff like this. But long term, it's trouble. And it's long term. It's really hard to to make these long-term promises, these commitments, like, again, real estate or long-term investment, and not know if he's just going to say, oops, that industry is attacking me, or as my dad said, like, come on and make a boycott against a certain type of company like Goodyear, and just give a tweet and attack a whole company or industry. It's tough. It's just, I don't know. Somebody says, what? Don't like his behavior, his policies, they do nothing for me. I'm an average guy. And that's kind of how I feel too. Like, but I think some of the policies hit people exactly where they are hurting. They help some people deeply. So I've heard a lot of people talk about the economy, 401k, the stock market. And I wonder how many of those people got hit really hard in 2008, 2009 with the recession, and attached the economic struggles that they were feeling to Obama and Biden and Clinton, who was the Secretary of State, maybe. And then also attached them to Bush and kind of the old guard of the Republican Party. And finally started doing better. And maybe even if they're doing better now, still have this fear that everything's just going to get pulled out from underneath them again. And so really afraid that the economy is going to collapse again. And looking at the pandemic and in a different light, if I'm a person who got nailed in 2008, 2009, then I could see the pandemic as, oh no, it's happening again. And it's happening because people are closing or forcing businesses to close. It's not because of the virus. I don't know anyone who's died from the virus, but I know a lot of people who have died from economic struggles. The offshoots of that, suicide and drug abuse and alcohol abuse and things like this. And so I wonder how many of them want him in because they think it will be good for the stock market and for their savings. I mean, again, I think someone with Trump's behaviors and policies is good for some things of the stock market, maybe like the lower taxes and certain, like relaxing some regulations in some ways. But I think the overall instability and volatility is not good for long-term growth in the stock market. I think it's actually very good for maybe hedge funds in the stock market, people who play the ups and downs and who rely on volatility to make money, who are betting on the futures. That's a whole conversation in itself about people who rely on volatility and whether they have some prediction on what Trump is going to say or do and can game the stock market in a way. That's more of the conspiracy theory stuff. I don't want to dive too much into that. But the other thing that I thought, and I've heard from other people, is just this idea about bringing our troops home, and Trump saying, oh, Trump brought our troops home. He stopped the wars. He brought peace to the Middle East. I'm like, what are they talking about, peace to the Middle East? Like, I doubt he's brought peace to the Middle East. And definitely not a long-lasting peace to the Middle East, maybe a short-term television piece. But it makes me think just about how, one, we ignored the economic recession in this country and how that hit so many people so deeply, not just in the US, but around the world. And two, how we have not really talked about what happened with Iraq and Afghanistan and sending so many American troops over there who may have died, who may have come back with trauma, physical or emotional trauma, who have come back and maybe came back with financial trauma and they couldn't get on their, so they came back and now they're homeless, combination of all those things. Now maybe they're back and they're on lots of drugs to try to deal with some of the moral injury that they had over there, or many different pains and struggles that they've accumulated. And that's just the individuals themselves. And then you can talk about their family and their extended network and the struggles and pains that they've had seeing some of these people go over there. And so again, when did those wars start? Those wars started with Bush and the old guard. I mean, officially they started in 2001, 2003, around there. So they started with the old guard Republicans and Bush, and then Obama continued a lot of it. And so I think a lot of people may attach and think, okay, Trump has brought these people home, so therefore he's taking care of them. They've said that the VA has improved drastically. I don't believe it has. I don't think the Veteran Affairs Department has improved drastically. I'm going to talk with some more military vet friends of mine to see if that's true. But regardless, it sounds like there's a deep fear and gratitude to not send people overseas. And for someone like me, who I didn't go over, and I don't have a lot of close friends who went over, it doesn't hit me as hard because it's not as prescient in my life. But I can imagine for some people, it's very, very important issue. But I think there's ways that we can talk about these things. You know, I think honestly, what we should do as a government is that we should talk about these things. We should talk about the pain and trauma that we've brought to so many people in this country through those two big events, and now this third event, which is the pandemic. I think we need to talk about these things. We need to talk about the grief. We need to talk about the struggle. We need to come together over this. As someone says in the comments, we now have to heal our country first because of Trump. I think Trump has added to the pain and struggle of our country, that it has added a lot of anger and fear and divisiveness. Trump is a person who likes to punch. And when he gets punched, he punches back. When he gets punched, he punches back harder. You know, I like to say, you know, if somebody punches him, he tries to hit him over the head with a chair. And now, again, it takes two people to punch in a fight typically. And so I don't think Trump is fully responsible for even the pain we're facing now. I'd say he's contributed and added a lot to it. And then again, we have the pain and the struggle from the economic recession in 2008, 2009, and then from the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, from 9/11, and we can keep going back. Police brutality, which hasn't been resolved, and that's, you know, there were riots in the 60s related to police being brutal towards Black populations in urban areas. It's that, again, is an unresolved conflict. And that's, you can take that one all the way back to slavery and the unresolved nature of that conflict and how we often shove it under the rug and don't talk about it. Or if talk about it, it's in a blaming fashion and not a reconciliatorial tone. I think that's a word, reconciliatorial. Ooh, that's a stretch. So I think there's a lot of healing that this country can do. And I think we have a tendency, as my old roommate said, you know, when we got hit with 9/11, George W. Bush came out and said, "Go shopping." And I think we have a tendency in the U.S. to distract ourselves from problems, and often to distract ourselves by trying to be very productive and very work-oriented. That being lazy is one of the worst things that we can do. And I wonder if it's because when we're lazy and when we slow down, we start to feel all the pain that we've been avoiding. You know, I know it's the case in my situation. When I start to slow down, I can start feeling the pains and aches in my body, and some of the emotional pains come up as well. You know, certain memories come up and tears come to my eyes. And sometimes it's much easier to just work and focus on being productive and the good, what do they call it, Protestant work ethic that has been quite embedded in American culture. Somebody says an excuse, everything Trump fights with anyone, he fight with people for no reason at all. Yeah, I mean, I see both things. I see Trump responding to perceived attacks with attacks, and I see Trump provoking attacks. The challenge is, at least the way that I look at a lot of kind of these emotional attacks, is that it's not always an active attack. You know, for example, if someone says Trump has orange face, and they call him bloated and stuff like that. That's for many of us a very obvious attack. Oh, they made fun of him. They made fun of his face. They made fun of his weight. So that's an obvious attack, and often he will respond to that with a even bigger attack. Oh, you're fake. You're a liar. You're totally corrupt. It's like, whoa, chill. I think another form of attack that we don't often see is ignoring or not paying attention to someone that much. And I think for someone like Trump, I think he perceives that as an attack. I don't think individuals are trying to do that as an attack. So even not talking about Trump or not talking about him on the news, he can perceive as an attack. Oh, they're not paying attention to me. They're trying to bias me. They're biased. They're trying to censor me. It's like, whoa, what? And I find that to be the hardest challenge with this idea of like an emotional attack, is that it's so much based in the receiver of it, the perception of the receiver of it. And the person who is, quote unquote, giving it more often than not, has no idea they're actually attacking the other person. So I think Trump often feels attacked, even if people aren't attacking him, and then responds with a type of attack, often very kind of aggressive and loud, sarcastic, and name-calling attack. So I agree that he picks a lot of fights. I just think he may believe that they are provoked. Whether other people, like myself included, are even trying to provoke those attacks. And I think it takes a lot of work. I mean, I've been working on this stuff for a couple of years now, about how to learn how to respond to emotional attacks without emotionally attacking the other person. It's tough, because a lot of times we don't even know that we're doing things to hurt the other person. And this same person says Trump and his administration are the new Third Reich. I would say there's lots of similarities. From what I understand, Hitler came to power after there was a strong economic recession, the Great Depression in Europe, especially in Germany, and after they lost a war. So that there was a lot of humiliation, I believe, in the population, both for losing the war and losing a lot of their money. And I think he pointed a lot of that towards the Jewish population, which I believe still had a lot of the wealth at the time. I'm not sure, but I think they still had a lot of the wealth. And again, playing on these deep pains and desperations of a population. And I think we have it here as well, and we're just not talking about it. And I forget about it a lot as well, because for me, like when 2008 happened, 2009, I was in Tanzania. I finished university in 2007. I went to college, we say here, and I went to Tanzania in 2008. And I was doing an internship there for a year and a half when Obama got elected, when the recession started, and pretty much until, I didn't come back till September 2009. So by that time, it had gone through, I think, some of the deepest points and was starting maybe a little bit to come back. And then I came back and I got a job. So I didn't feel the pains of it like so many people did. I didn't lose a house. I didn't think about losing a house. I didn't lose a job. I didn't struggle to find a job. Whereas a lot of people, some people lost their whole life savings. I met a guy who was working in Tanzania, a guy from Ireland, and he said he lost like $100,000 or $500,000 in the stock market and lost all of his life savings. So had to come down to Tanzania and work a good paying job so that he could keep going forward. And yeah, I don't know. I think the challenge with looking at how we as a population are feeling are that we're over 300 million people. Was it 330 million people in this country? And we all feel different things for different reasons. So some people are, relieved and excited that Trump is in there because he's not a politician, and they believe that politicians are corrupt, and they get angry at politicians and have a lot of fear of what politicians can do. I don't. I get frustrated with the way that Trump communicates so deeply. There's been some points in the last 4 years where I don't know if I've ever been that angry at a politician. Ever. I thought he was faking a war with North Korea just so that he could look like he could win the Nobel Prize, just so he can get attention. I thought he was faking a lot of things. I was so angry, so viscerally angry. And I think a lot of us are. That we see the divisiveness, we see how a lot of his participation or escalation of conflict is ripping apart some of our families, where we don't want to see somebody because now, maybe for the holidays, because Trump politicized wearing of a mask and said, oh, the CDC recommends we can wear a mask, but it's voluntary. And you know what? I'm not going to do it. I saw this on John Oliver last night, where it was showing that Trump, when he first announced the CDC recommendation to wear a mask, said it was voluntary, and then said, but I'm not going to do it. And John Oliver said, at that specific point, Trump made masks political. And I just want someone who is in office who has a calmer demeanor, who can take a punch without throwing one back, and who really just tries to bring a team together and asks the team for their input and really respects their opinions and their expertise and tries to work with them to resolve some of these problems and brings people from so many different sides. I don't think we're going to become the United States or continue to be the United States unless we start uniting with each other. And that requires talking to each other and finding out why some of us are hurting so much. I'm grateful that I was on Twitter last night and got into a few different conversations with people and tried to really understand why would they support Trump? Because for me, it baffles me at times. But I appreciate that they were open up to me and show me a little more about some of the struggles that they're going through. Like one person said they live in a county that has a lot of oil and gas. And so if the oil and gas industry disappears, the whole county disappears. Not just the people who work directly for oil and gas, but the people who are on the outskirts. It's similar here in Detroit. So many people work for the automotive industry, but a lot of people who don't are the ones who sell to people who work for the automotive industry. It's the lawyers and the doctors and dentists and restaurants and malls and things like this. A lot of them cater to people who work in the auto industry. And so if auto industry disappears, like it almost did in 2008, 2009, then the whole economy can just collapse in an area. So I understand why someone may think, okay, Trump is at least going to keep it shorter, like for the short term, at least give us a little more time. I still think that Biden and the team that he's building will be much better at managing technological change and also providing the safety net for people who may get left behind for that. I think Andrew Yang, especially if he were part of the team, has a pretty good grip on how to at least talk about it and think about what are some of the challenges of innovation and technological change and the increase of technological change. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I guess I'm just grateful that people are voting and that people are paying more attention to politics. As someone here says, he's been there for 4 years. He's a politician. I totally agree. It's not part of his story, though. His story is I'm the successful businessman who is a get-rich-quick scheme. I hate to put it that way, but and it preys on a lot of people who got nailed economically, I think. And so I think we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited mostly for Biden because not so much for Biden, but for Biden as the coach, for Biden as a person who will bring together a team of the up-and-coming talent that's on the Democratic or left side, if you will, but also on the moderate Republican side. And honestly, I think they have a much better chance of listening to the to the more extreme right side and their wants and needs than I think the more extreme right side or the Trump administration has to listen to the opposite side. And I think we need someone that will bring people together. And I see Biden as a coach that will or a coach or a general manager that will put the team together that can help bring this country together. You know, it's ebb and flow. We come together, we go apart. We come together, we go apart. And it feels like we're quite apart right now, but if we are a rubber band, then that means we're going to come together. Hopefully we don't smash together too hard. Hopefully come together, you know, and when maybe we get this virus under control a little bit, and then we start opening up things, and we can start seeing our friends and family and hug them again and kiss them again and just be humans again. It's hard to be a human in this environment where we're so deprived and starved for human touch and close human interaction. It's yeah. So anyways, I will have a show tomorrow afternoon at the same time, and 1 p.m. tomorrow. And then I will do one at the end of the day tomorrow. And we'll see how these things go. I may have I am almost certainly going to have a glass of rum and something at that time. Maybe at 1 o'clock too. Who knows? We'll see how the day's going. And on that note, I will read the last comment. We need a good representation of political sides at the table. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And I have hope we're going to get there. I have hope we are. Do I know when? No, but I believe we're going to get there. And I actually feel more confident in this election than I thought I would, even if Biden loses. So thanks, y'all. Thanks for joining, and talk to you tomorrow. Ciao, y'all.